Introducing the D'Addario Auto Lock, made with locking strap ends for an easy-to-use, clip-on system. When you're done, just pull the latch and slide it off. Keep your guitar on lock with D'Addario Auto Lock.
Hey everybody, this is Ted Drozdowski from Premier Guitar, and we're backstage at the Tennessee Performing Arts Center with Dream Theater today, and we're talking to John Petrucci about a bunch of cool guitars. He has a beautiful rack of gleaming instruments over here. We walked in and I was kind of like instantly hypnotized, and I think the one with the sparkle finish didn't hurt either.
Yeah.
That's pretty gorgeous.
That's a showstopper, that one.
But John has some brand new signature models for 2019 that he's going to talk about, and the first one here is part of his Majesty Series. And man, why don't I just let you take it away?
Sure. Yeah, actually, with the exception of a baritone that I have out on tour with me, all the guitars that we're carrying are the Majesty guitars. And the ones that I'm about to show you are new for 2019.
Cool.
That just were made available as of the 1st of April, so they're brand new. And the one I'm holding is pretty unique to the line. First of all, just to kind of educate people, all the Majesty guitars are neck through guitars. So in my line with Ernie Ball Music Man, who I've been with for 20 years now, which is unbelievable. That's 2/3 of my career with Dream Theater. So of all of them, the Majesty is the only neck through version. Now this particular one I'm holding is called the Tiger Eye, and this was the only one we did as a limited edition. So there were 300 of these made 6 and 7 string. And the thing that's unique about this guitar is it's the only one that's made of alder. So the sides of the guitar are alder. And just to explain the construction, the headstock, the neck, and the main part of the body is all one piece of mahogany.
Oh, very
and
cool.
So the bridge and the pickups are direct mounted into that, and that's where you get all of the meat and the sustain and all that. And then the alder will kind of shape the sound.
Okay.
The other thing that's unique about this guitar is that it's the only one that has a full maple top. So some of the other ones I'll show you either don't have a maple top at all, or the maple top only covers the shield, which is in the center. So this is the first one that we did with the full maple top.
Great.
And it's so beautiful. You can really see the figuring of the maple. They're all unique. It's carried through to the headstock. You know, it's all about the details. 3-piece neck in the back, and even up here on the back of the headstock. All of the new Majesties come with DiMarzio pickups. I've been with DiMarzio forever and ever, and we design new pickups for these guitars. This is called the Dreamcatcher. This is called the Rainmaker.
Okay.
And they sound unbelievable.
Okay, and what's the difference between both speakers? Is one a tighter wind, or what's going on in there?
Well, you know what? Both pickups are meant to sort of bring out, what the guitar sort of does acoustically and the characteristics of all this wood combination. So the bridge pickup is going to give a really sort of forward, bold, aggressive, tight on the low end, sweet on the top end kind of sound. The neck pickup, the reason I call it the Rainmaker is because it makes people cry when you play solos on it. It's going to have a very sort of fluid, liquidy, clear sound. But and then of course you can combine the pickups. There's a 3-way toggle. There's a coil tap on the tone control.
Okay.
You punch that, pops out when you're in the middle position. All the Majesty guitars have a piezo system.
Yes.
Right, so this control here selects magnetic, both piezo and magnetic, or only piezo. Okay. And you also have controls for the EQ of that piezo and the volume on the back.
Very cool.
And another cool feature, all these guitars have a preamp built into the guitar. So if you're using a long cable, you don't have to worry about cable, tonal degradation. And we're also we're able to put a boost on the volume control. So there's an up to 20 dB boost on the volume control. And everything on the guitar are is made with performance in mind. So all these controls, if you want to hit that boost, you just punch it.
Okay.
It pops up, you shut it off like that. And trust me, when you're playing and you're in the heat of battle, you know, you don't want to be sitting there like trying to find a little switch or pulling out the control. So just having the ability to do that as you're playing is great. And
yeah, and the Majesty has it looks like it has a really comfortable contour.
It does.
So you have access all the time. You're not reaching over anything or around anything.
Right. It's incredibly, incredibly comfortable. The neck dimensions, the contour of the body, the way it kind of sits against your body, it's just so silky. The layout of all the controls, if you notice, it's on an arc, and that follows the natural arc of your hand as you're playing. So, you know, if you're playing in the middle of a solo and you need to hit this, you know, you're not searching for it. It's also not in your way. I tend to kind of anchor my hand here.
Yep.
So these are nice and out of your way. You need to switch to piezo. It's right there. You know, just stop on a dime. You know, right there. You need to punch that. They're all in. Right there.
And is it the same tremolo bridge that you used on earlier models?
Yeah, so so this is proprietary to Music Man Guitars. We slightly changed the shape to sort of go with the Majesty, but this is an original floating trem that we developed. It has all rounded edges, rounded saddles, so it feels really comfortable on your hand. There's nothing sharp, nothing that's going to dig into your hand. And of course the piezo elements are in there as well.
Okay.
They all have stainless steel frets, ebony fretboard. You know, it plays like butter.
It looks nice. It looks really swell.
Yeah, and so anyway, that was a long explanation that will pretty much carry into the other ones.
Okay.
But this is the Tiger Eye Limited.
Great. You know, let me ask you one more question too, and this is about the wood selection. You know, I assume that you've been playing, obviously, various types of guitars for your whole career. What made you focus on ash? And also what made you sort of look at essentially what's an update on the idea of old center block construction? You know, because old Gibsons had essentially that. So that's kind of a historic element of this design.
Well, a couple of things. So just to clarify, this guitar is alder. So
alder. Oh, that's why. I'm sorry, alder.
That's okay. So the wings are alder. The reason we picked that, no particular reason, just like to do something different. We had done an alder version. I guess this is the way the story goes. We had done one of my other signature models in alder, and I liked the way it sounded, and I wanted to kind of do a Majesty combination with that guitar. And so we never used alder on Majesties. They've always been either basswood or mahogany. Okay. And so this is the first time we did that. It's just a different sound. It presents a different spice than the spice rack. And this guitar has a really sort of out front sound. That the sort of middle is a bit more pronounced and kind of sweeter as well. As far as the middle block thing, that's something that Ernie Ball Music Man started to do. They did like a tone block thing where even on guitars that weren't neck through. And so there'd be like a sort of a piece of mahogany that was just about this size in a basswood guitar or an alder guitar or mahogany guitar. And then all the bridge and the pickups would be mounted to that, and that kind of like gave you that solid, foundation of sound. And then whatever you covered the top with, whether it's maple or koa or whatever it is, and whatever the sides were would sort of contribute to the tonal recipe, I guess.
I guess. And I guess that gives you also just a very vibrant feeling, alive kind of neck on the guitar too.
Yeah, I think what it does is it gives the guitars a ton of character. Yeah, they just really speak, and they're all different in their own way. But let me show you the other ones.
Fantastic.
As well. So I'll put this one down. Okay, so I was mentioning before that some are basswood and don't have a maple top. So that would be an example. This would be an example of that. So you notice it's a solid finish. So there's no wood grain. This is actually called Kinetic Blue, and it's a great showbiz guitar because under the lights it changes colors.
Oh,
it's
fantastic.
Really, really rad. So actually the first signature guitar I did with Ernie Ball Music Man was in a color called Mystic Dream, and it did exactly that. It changed color. So this is kind of harkens back to that.
Yeah, I actually see hints of green coming out, just moving it right here.
Green, purple, blue. Yeah. It's pretty cool. So everything that I explained to you about the feature set, the pickups, the frets, the fretboard material, that's going to be the same on all the guitars.
Okay.
All right, so the only difference here is that this is an all basswood guitar. So even though I'm saying basswood, this whole neck construction, that piece we talked about, that's still mahogany.
Still mahogany, okay.
Yeah. And since it's opaque, there's really no need for a maple top unless you wanted to do that tonally.
Mm-hmm.
But for these guitars, we wanted to just go with, again, sort of hearkening back to the very first guitars I did with Ernie Ball Music Men, which were just basswood.
Cool.
Right? So.
And do they all have the same kind of pots?
Yep, it's all the same.
Yep.
Right. So even the locking tuners.
Mm-hmm.
These are really cool because, another thing that we did from the beginning is we did this sort of non-locking nut feature.
Yep.
And so these locking tuners really work incredibly with the bar. Also, you notice there's an angled headstock too.
I do.
Yeah. So all these little details make the guitar what it is. So
well, how much fun is it to be able to get together with designers and come up with this stuff?
You know what? It's unbelievable. I mean, I'm a creative person. I've always been that way. I've always been into art and music and writing, and so designing a guitar is like right up my alley. And of course, being a guitar player and having desires and needs as far as like performance and recording and the sounds I'm trying to get. It's been this unbelievable relationship with Sterling Ball and the entire Ball family, and like I said, 20 years doing this together, and I think we've come out with some really incredible instruments. And one of the best things is that other people who pick up the guitar get to enjoy it. And I love people coming up to me saying, "Oh man, I got your Majesty, or I got whatever model, and I just love the guitar, and it plays like a dream, and it sounds amazing, and thank you so much." And I love that, because the guitar community, it's all about sharing and camaraderie, and everybody loves to like talk about tone and technique, and we're all nerdy and geeky, and so I love being like a small part of that in the community. But anyway, so this is the Kinetic Blue, and I'll show you one more.
Okay, cool.
All right, So all of these guitars come in 6 and 7 string.
Okay.
I've been playing 7 strings since Dream Theater wrote the Awake album, which came out in 1994. That's when I got my first 7 string. So we do a 6 and a 7 string. This is a 7 string, 2019 Majesty. And the deal with this one is that it's all mahogany. And then there's a maple top just only on this shield section. So you could really sort of see by accentuating the top with maple what this one piece looks like. So again, from the headstock through the neck through here, that's one piece of mahogany. Everything's mounted to that. This has the black hardware throughout, which looks really cool.
It does look really cool.
And the sides are going to be mahogany, so you do get to see some of that mahogany grain, and then of course the maple grain on top. This color is called Enchanted Forest.
Excellent.
Green, yes.
Do you want to tell us anything about the electronics in there? Like, are they 250K pots? Do you, what sort of capacitors might be inside?
I would tell you if I knew, but I'd be lying.
Cool. I love that. All right.
Like I said, they're all going to have DiMarzio pickups. All the new ones have the Dreamcatcher and the Rainmaker. They all have a piezo with a piezo control, tone and volume, coil tap on the tone, 3-way toggle for the pickups, 20 dB boost on the volume, and again, a way of sort of EQing the piezo.
Cool.
And determining how much volume on that boost there. But as far as like details of what little tiny parts,
completely fine.
I don't know. But whatever they use, it sounds amazing.
Excellent.
And another thing too, when we first developed the guitar, again, everything to me was all like performance. Like when you're playing live and you go to reach for the volume control or whatever, and you're sweaty and your finger slips
off.
Just like these little stupid things. So like we put these rubber bands on all the controls, and it's been like that from the beginning, and they're so easy to get to.
Yeah, it's a super great idea, actually. Too. It's very simple, and yet it works very well.
So all that, like I said, just the arc and everything. So this feature set will be the same on all the Majesties. Yeah, this is the 7 string.
Are you game for showing us one of the baritones too, since we haven't gotten down
there? I can,
there?
sure.
Yeah, why not? Huh?
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this is a baritone BFR. So BFR stands for Ball Family Reserve. So they started doing, coming out with BFRs at some point several years ago. And the idea was that they were sort of, tone wood combinations that made for sort of deeper, richer sounding instruments, kind of like reserve wines and stuff like that.
Yes.
So this is Ball Family Reserve. A while back, I started sort of getting into the sound of baritone guitar, guitar tuned to B flat, tuned to A, and that sort of sound. And instead of tuning a 7-string down, or a guitar that with a standard sort of neck length, I felt that a baritone was the way to do that best. And they had come out with one that was just tuned to standard. I'm not remembering the name of it off the top of my head. Do you remember, Maddi, the name?
It was a Silhouette.
Was it a Silhouette?
Silhouette.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, and it basically, it was like a 6-string standard tuned guitar, but all the strings were an octave lower. So it sounded like a bass, but played like a guitar.
Yeah.
And it has the extended scale neck. So anyway, this is a baritone. You can see even on this, you're going to have that same feature set.
Yep.
Right now, it's a different sort of wood. This is a neck through. I'm sorry, this is a bolt-on, I mean.
Okay.
So that's going to be different, and you notice, with the Majesty is all really sleek. So the Majesty has the recessed controls and stuff. This doesn't have that. This is more like the original one that I had. And you see what I was talking about with the bridge design.
Yes.
So this was the original bridge design. The edges are still rounded, but it's a little more squared off.
Yeah, it doesn't have that sort of flying wedge.
Right,
look.
the Majesty kind of like the bridge sort of adapts to the shape of the guitar. And this is a tobacco burst. And again, stainless steel frets. It's just a beautiful, beautiful instrument.
Yeah, these are all fantastic looking guitars.
Thank you. On the new album, Distance Over Time, I use this on 2 songs.
Okay.
And that's why we have it with us.
And which 2 songs are those on?
So it's on the song Paralyzed.
Okay.
That we're playing live in this current show, and a song called Out of Reach, which is the only ballad on the album, and that was written in a very spontaneous way one day between Jordan and I. And you can hear that on Distance Over Time as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now, the band has been together for, is it 34 years now?
Something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a
30
big
plus.
catalog to draw from.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And do you basically honor the whole catalog on this tour at different pieces?
Not exactly.
Okay.
I mean, we're doing something special on this tour. First of all, we have a new album that came out, like I mentioned. So we're playing a bunch of songs from that, which is always a lot of fun. And then we sort of mix that up with some older songs from our catalog. That's the first set. This is an evening with show.
Oh, great.
Right? So it's about a 3-hour or so show. The second set, what we're doing is we're celebrating the 20th anniversary of the release of Scenes from a Memory, which came out in 1999. That was our first concept album. And it's a story that's being told with characters and everything. And it's actually very near and dear to a lot of our fans. So, some people were there when the album came out and we played it live 20 years ago. So, and some of the people are brand new that got into Dream Theater later and that are younger, and they're seeing it for the first time.
Right.
So it's a bit of nostalgia, and it's also a bit of an opportunity for people to see that concept album performed in its entirety for the first time.
Cool.
Who weren't around when it came out.
Well, that sounds like a beautifully conceived evening of music.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
John, thank you so much for being with us today, and we really appreciate it, man. And I know our readers will too. Thank you. And
Cool.
now I guess we're going to take it away with Maddi Schieferstein.
Sounds good.
Now we're going to take a deeper dive over here by the Guitar Tech Zone with Maddi Schieferstein, who is working with John on this tour. And there's a bunch of awesome looking guitars in the rack and a rack, a good old school rack of effects.
Good old school rack, yeah.
So
there it is.
Why don't you walk us through that good old school rack as a starting point?
So this time out, we're doing something new. We're using wireless. After 20 years, John decided to go back to a wireless, and technology has advanced pretty well since 20 years ago. So this is the Axient digital system. And we did some extensive testing over the summer last year while we were in the studio, and can't tell the difference between the cable and the wireless anymore. So all the little weird quirks of the compander circuit and compression and things like that are all gone. So it works really well. And then for what we're doing, because the guitars have 2 pickup systems, we have 2 belt packs on the strap. So I have 2 belt packs on one strap, 2 on another, and I swap the straps around between the guitars as we need them. So from out of the wireless, we go to the old Framptone AB box, which we've been using forever and a day. And what this does is it takes both the pickup system's inputs off the wireless receiver, and then it splits them to 2 separate outputs on the backside. So the quick signal path for the piezo is it comes out of the AB box, goes into a TC body res pedal, and then to a radial J48 DI.
Okay.
Out to the house. That's it.
Cool. And all of John's guitars have the his
Correct.
signature piezo bridge, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Everything has the piezo pickup system in
Okay.
it. The magnetic side now, once we leave the AB box, we come in and we hit the Dunlop custom JP95 rack wah. And so what this is essentially it's the rack wah dialed into John's settings, which is how his signature pedal came about in the first place. And then the controller pedal lives out on stage, and the guts of the audio path sit here in the rack.
Cool.
Then out of here, we come up into the pedal drawer, which is right here.
Lovely.
Yeah. We've got an RJM mini effects gizmo, and we got 5 loops and 6 pedals. So what happens is in one of the loops, 2 of the pedals are daisy chained together.
Okay.
Depending on what song it is, I'll just turn one off, turn the other on, back and forth. The same button on the pedal board controls them. So we have a hypergravity compressor pedal by TC Electronic. We have a Keeley Red Dirt overdrive pedal. We have a TC Helix phaser. We have a Boss AW3 auto wah. And then in the last loop, we have a Boss Super Octave OC3, and then John's signature Dreamscape pedal by TC Electronic. And the cool thing about all the TC stuff is we spent time doing all the tone prints with them for all the sounds that John wanted, you know, because you could never find like the exact right compressor setting or right phaser setting or whatever. So we did all the tone prints with them. So now you just beam the tone print in and it's the sound.
Cool. And do you know if those tone prints are available for?
Yeah, they absolutely are.
Okay.
Yeah, you can
So
get them through the TC app.
Cool. You can download them at home and rock out with John's tone prints. Cool.
Totally. Yep. And then so out of here, out of the pedal drawer.
And those are fired up with a good old-fashioned Pedal Plus, a good old-fashioned.
Yeah, old Voodoo Labs Pedal Power 2 Plus.
Yep.
And the old standby that everybody uses.
Yep.
And like I said, it's a mini effects gizmo, MIDI controlled from the RJM pedal board.
Cool.
So all the audio path resides here in the rack. There's no audio that goes out to the onstage pedal board. So from the output of the mini effects gizmo, we're doing a new thing again this year. So we're using a TC Electronic Mimic pedal. And the Mimic pedal is kind of like a double tracker. The best way I could put it is if you listen to Randy Rhoads and you can hear his double tracking when he recorded, it kind of does that. And the way we have it set is pretty tight. So what it does, it just kind of makes the sound a bit wider than normal stereo, I guess you could say. So the output, and that lives in the back of the rack. And then the output of the Mimic pedal is stereo. So we feed each amp individually. So each amp is its own entity, has its own cabinet, and then the Axe effects resides in stereo in both effects loops.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Cool.
So the Mesa Boogie JP2C is John's signature amp through Mesa Boogie, and I'm sure you guys know all about it, but to give you an overview, it's 3 independent channels, 2 graphic EQs, everything is MIDI switchable on the amp. It's got this cool little feature over here called Shred, which is a shift in the mid-range and gain. And so John uses that, like especially with a 7-string guitar, you kick the shred on and it kind of tightens up the bottom end and really makes everything tight. So it's good. It's handy for extended scale guitar players and 7 and 8-string players.
Cool. Yeah, it kind of takes that flubbiness out of the low.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And it's also cool even with a 6-string. You know, like they're playing "Pull Me Under" at the end, and he's just chugging away. You kick that in, and it just focuses the guitar right up. So. So the amps are in stereo. So this top amp here is the left side, and it feeds a 4x12 recto cabinet that has a microphone on it. And then the bottom amp is the same thing. So when you change a setting on one, you have to do it on the other to keep them the same. What we do is channel 1 gets no graphic EQ. It just sits by itself.
Okay.
Channel 2 uses EQ1, and so that's hard set. And then channel 3 uses EQ2, so that's his lead sound.
Okay.
And yeah, it's an amazing amp.
And you mentioned the recto cabs. Is he just running 2 cabs? Or?
Yes, 2 4x12s. They sit off stage.
One for each out.
Yep.
Great.
And then the Axe FX, so last year we got the Axe FX 3 and we used it on the G3 tour and it worked great. When we were getting everything ready for this tour, we went back to the XL Pluses just because of the time constraints and getting things programmed and getting new units in and rewiring the racks. It was kind of we were running up against a wall with time. So we just went back to the XL Pluses. And all we're doing with these is just using them for effects. So all of the time-based effects, chorusing, reverbs, delays, pitch shifting, and they all reside in the effects loop of the amp. And it's all controlled from the Mastermind pedal board.
Cool.
And then just to clear up any confusion, the power amps in the bottom, we used to have a set of 112 cabinets that sat out on stage as monitor wedges, and this power amp was what drove those.
Okay.
So I took a secondary output off the Axe FX, but we went back to using regular monitor wedges now, so these aren't used anymore.
Those are dormant.
Yeah,
Okay.
They're just still there.
Cool.
So.
And John does have 2 monitors out there.
Yes, correct.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, everything he does is in stereo.
Okay.
So there's a dedicated left and a right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, great. I have to say, it's a very tight-looking rack.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. It's the great thing, especially with all the MIDI switching, is there's a lot less cabling now.
Yep.
It's nice. I say it's nice and simple, but looking at it, you probably wouldn't think so, but it is.
Well, and the Boogies have a really handsome facade too.
Yes, they
and
do.
I realize that's it's just a cosmetic thing, but it
Yeah.
counts.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely.
It's nice to have something that looks good in your workstation.
Sure does. Yeah.
So should we look at a couple of guitars while we're here?
Yeah, we could totally look at some
Okay.
guitars. Yeah.
Okay.
John talked about a bunch of the new guitars for 2019. Let's
He did.
take a step back in time to the original. This was the first production Majesty that we received, and he played this one for a few years when we first got it. So this is the actual original color. His original signature model, they did a color called Mystic Dream, and for the Majesties, they did this kind of frozen paint look. So they call this Arctic Dream.
Ah.
So it's the same color, but in a frozen kind of matte finish, and just like all the new Majesties that have the maple cap, this shield is actually maple that's carbon, that looks like carbon fiber. So they laser etch it and stain it to look like carbon fiber, but it's actually real maple.
Interesting.
Yeah. All the same controls, all the same everything. The original Majesties, like this one, had the mirrored inlays. The new ones have kind of like a mother of pearl style inlay. And all the same controls and everything on the back.
Cool.
But
And
yeah, this was the first one.
And the finish also has that really very interesting kind of shifting dimensional look
Yeah,
too.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the I call it flip-flop paint, but color changing paint. And this one kind of goes from green to purple to I don't know what else is in there.
Yeah, it's interesting, very chameleonic.
And then these guitars, the original Majesties also had what was called smoked chrome. So it was kind of a chrome plating that looks kind of translucent black.
Yep.
In a way. You can see it's got a lot of miles
got
on it.
somewhere on the top.
Yeah. So yeah, this was the original Majesty right here.
Cool.
So and now we'll go to the sparkly guy here.
That makes that a historic guitar.
Yeah.
And this makes this a sparkly guitar.
Yeah, very sparkly. This is new for 2019. This was a limited edition that Music Man did for their dealers. They have a thing called Premier Dealer Network, and so they'll make limited guitars, and the dealers place their orders, and that's all that's made. So if they say, for example, they get an order for 5 of these guitars, that's all that they're ever going to make.
Huh,
so
interesting.
this was one of the ones on display at NAMM. But this is called Gremlin Green Sparkle, and it's basswood, so like the Kinetic Blue one that John showed you. Chrome hardware, all same control layout. This has the mother of pearl inlay on it, and yeah, it's very sparkly.
Yes, it is.
So this one grabs a lot of attention when
Any
he
idea how
when he
many of
puts it
those
on.
were actually made?
I don't actually. Yeah, I really don't. It's I remember walking through the booth at the NAMM show, and I looked at that and I went, "He's definitely going to want one of these." So, and here it is.
Who wouldn't?
So
Come on,
right,
look at
exactly.
that.
I know
like it.
everybody should have one of these.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
So, yeah, it's got a little bit of a green hue to it with the silver.
I like
so,
it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Well, cool. Why don't we go across the stage and we'll talk to John and see what his bass gear is like.
Absolutely. Let's do
Cool.
it.
And here we are talking to John Myung. John, it's really great to meet you.
Thanks.
Appreciate you being here to do another rig rundown with us. I know you did one several years ago, and it's been one of the more popular rig rundowns we've done, so it's cool to be back here with Dream Theater. Let's talk about this bass. You're playing, essentially you've got a bunch of different tunings with 6 different basses on tour, or 7 different basses on tour. And what do you have right now? This is the standard, I
Right
think?
now, yes. This is a standard tuning bass, which has 2 humbuckers which is the preferred sound for me, because I find that in terms of tonal possibilities, it's the most unique configuration. By turning the different pickup selectors, you get a lot of different kind of cool sounds.
And is this a Music Man bongo model? Are they all bongos? Or?
Currently, it's something that they make for me, but in 2020, we're going to try to get it out and have it available as a signature model.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So this is a prototype?
Essentially, a beginning prototype.
Okay.
Yes.
And how long have you been playing this particular bass?
Oh, at least 4 years now, if not more.
Cool. So you've lived with it, and you have a good feel for it.
Yes. And the thing that sets it apart is the 5-string neck is a lot more comfortable than what I originally had for string spacing. So what we did was we superimposed 6 strings on the 5-string neck, and that is just the right fusion of elements for me.
Cool.
To have that combination. So it's working.
Great.
It's working for me, yeah.
Great. Can we hear it a little bit?
Sure.
Cool.
Yeah, that's the classic Music Man sound. That's why I play the basses.
Great.
Yeah.
Right. What were you playing before Music Man, just out of curiosity?
I've been on a adventure of different musical vendors, you know.
Yeah.
But I started with Music Man. Now I'm back with Music Man. So.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And you have another bass over here you wanted to talk about a little bit as well?
Yeah. The other configuration is. There we go. The HS configuration, which is really neat. In terms of sonic possibilities, it doesn't really match well with every song that we play, but for certain songs, it definitely works well. For like the opening track on the new album, Untethered Angel.
Okay.
There's something about this bass and what I have going on with my rig and the way it translates into the house that has an edge over the HH. So that's why I'm using this for that particular song.
Cool. And do you find that it has a little bit more of a sharper, more focused forward tone, or?
Yeah, it's just really settled and full. I could play a little bit of it.
Cool. Well, thank you for being with us, and thank you for showing us these 2 models that you're playing on this tour. And you're using a configuration of different tunings on this tour as well, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It goes in and out. It varies by half step. It's either a half step above standard tuning or a half step below.
Okay.
For this particular set, yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks again, and I think now we're going to have Maddi Schieferstein come over and talk about your effects.
Excellent.
Thanks, man.
Thanks.
Okay, and we're back with Maddi, and Maddi is going to take us through John's signal chain over here.
Yeah, so here we are on stage right, and John runs a wireless. He's on one of the older Shure units still, so we haven't upgraded to the digital on this side of the stage yet. But the outputs of the wireless go into this Whirlwind multi-selector here. And then out of the multi-selector, we go into an MXR bass compressor pedal. And it's set for just a very, not really compression. It just, John tends to dig in when he plays a little bit. So what it does is it kind of takes off a little bit of that attack. Like if he gets the strings mashed down onto the pickup pole pieces, you get that popping sound. Yep. So all the compressor pedal does is just catches any of those really hard transients and just whacks them off just a little bit.
Okay.
From the compressor pedal, then we go out to the pedal board to a volume pedal, Ernie Ball volume pedal. And then from the volume pedal, we come back in And now we need to split the signal out into a few different directions, right? So we've got some different outputs on the bass rig. So when we come back from the volume pedal, we hit a Mesa Boogie buffer splitter, right? So the 1/4-inch output of the buffer splitter feeds the input of the Ashdown amp here. And the XLR output of the buffer splitter feeds this Voice of God Little Labs module, which is kind of a phase resonance tool. And it helps John dial in the low end for his ear mix and for front of house as well. So it's just an extra added little spice in the spice rack. And then the Axe effects, it resides in the effects loop of the Ashdown amp. And he's got an MFC 101 foot controller out front to control all of his effects patches. And then we have a 4x10 Ashdown speaker cabinet attached to the amp, which has a microphone on it for the PA. And then what I forgot to mention was before we hit the input of the amp, we actually hit this pedal drawer here.
Excellent.
So just like on the other side, it's a RJM Mini FX Gizmo, pedal power 2. And then we have this Mesa Grid Slammer pedal, and that is on all the time in front of the Ashdown amp. So it gives a little bit of grind that John really likes. He likes the tone of it, so we just keep using it. We've also got a Bass Octave Deluxe, Bass Chorus Deluxe by MXR. And then we've got some TC pedals. We've got a Vortex flanger, a flashback delay, and a Hall of Fame reverb.
Excellent.
And yeah, it's pretty tight, compact rig.
Yep, but a nice, nice assortment of drive and modulation.
Yeah.
And off you go, man.
Yeah. And then the Ashdown amps have been great. You know, John brought one into the studio for the new album, and it was like, wow, that's the sound. So there it is. Now we got it on the road.
Well, cool. Thank you so much for being part of our
Thanks,
rundown,
Ted.
man.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it. Pleasure to meet you.
Cool. Pleasure to meet you.